I'm really grateful to Professor Dr. The Vice Chancellor, and he's a very esteemed and respectable personality. I'm indebted to him. I've learned so much from him during the course of my career, and this university is lucky to have Raza Bhatti Sahab as the Vice Chancellor. I'm grateful to Englishers and the Department of English for giving me this opportunity to express my thoughts, to share my thoughts on a very important topic, that is language, culture and education revival. What I've done is I've tried to make this presentation as close to the topic as possible, because culture, although I'm a person, I've studied English language, but my field is endangered languages, and I'm all for Pakistani languages, the revival of the interest in Pakistani languages, and to stop this process of language desertion which leads to language death. In the current linguistic scenario in Pakistan, what we have seen is English is the most prestigious language. After English, second and most important language is Urdu. As a result, I carried out research in rural and urban Multan, and what I noticed was that Urdu is replacing Saraiki in the home domain, where it had unchallenged position for centuries. The factors that are contributing to the desertion or language shift of Saraiki include government policies and lack of institutional support, schools, lack of support from mass media, the present state of Saraiki in Pakistan, and shame. Shame, in fact, from my data, shame came out as a very big factor. Actually, you are lucky that Sindhi is taught in schools. Unfortunately, Saraiki is not a part of school curriculum. As a result, it is being replaced by other languages, and the main killer language is Urdu and then English as well. This presentation will focus on how the language policies of the elite English medium schools. In fact, I went to all schools. I went to the elite English medium schools, municipality schools, mid-level government schools, according to the fee structure actually. And but here in this presentation, I noticed some of the excerpts from the interviews of teachers from elite English medium schools. The problem, the reason I'm sharing it here is that at times they become the policy makers. The graduates of those schools become the policy makers, and whatever they have internalized during the course of their education, they turn it into a policy, which is really damaging for the languages in Pakistan. I've coined the term linguistic cringe to refer to the shame that many Saraikis feel regarding their mother tongue. This term has been inspired by the term cultural cringe, and it is associated with Australians. We all know that the Europeans, the British, they sent their criminals to Australia on exile, and then Australians have this shame that their ancestors were, their forefathers were criminals. Although, despite that, we all prayed for the success of Australian team last week. So, I've coined this cultural cringe term and language desertion as well. The students of English must have come across, in sociolinguistics, they must have come across language shift, language death, language revival. But I use the term language desertion as well, because it's us, we the speakers of different Pakistani languages are failing our own language. We are not transmitting it to the future generations. We are deserting it. It is our duty to protect these languages culture. If we lose the language, we are going to lose the culture as well. Using data obtained from the teachers working in Multan, this presentation will highlight the links between colonial and post-colonial policy language choices. The presentation will then highlight the benefits of bitrilingualism before discussing the importance of maintaining indigenous languages. Next. It is argued that the colonized take on the view of themselves that the colonizers promote, and this total physical and mental submission results in the colonizers establishing themselves firmly on alien lands and minds. What I saw was when I read these Lord Macaulay's speeches, when I read all the writings of colonists regarding the languages and education in Indo-Pak, in the subcontinent, and then when I compared it with the interviews that I had with teachers, I saw startling similarity. And I thought that those colonizers have been replaced by the English language teachers who are working in different places and their views regarding the Pakistani languages. The view that English is the storehouse, because this is what the colonists held in Indo-Pak, that English is the storehouse of knowledge, rationality and morality, and the condescending, disdainful attitudes of English towards Indians and their language are reflected in various forms in the discourses, not only of the school heads and school teachers, but also of the parents themselves as well. I went to a school where 70% of the children have Saraiki as their mother tongue. And the teacher said that if they are Saraikis, then they should be proud of the head. This is what the head said. When I interviewed the head, she said, well, if they are Saraikis, they should be proud of being Saraikis. But when I interviewed the teachers, I was shocked. The teacher said that although 70% of the children had Saraiki as their mother tongue, and she said that if children by any chance speak Saraiki in the playgrounds, they are fined. In fact, and the teacher said, I'm lenient towards those who speak in Urdu, but I cannot tolerate Saraiki. It's a home language, so it should remain at home. And what was really shocking was, I said, okay, do you monitor them in the playgrounds? Do you find them? She said, when they speak in Urdu, her answer was, जब गालियाँ देते हैं या सराइकी बोलते हैं तो फाइन करती हूँ. So for her, she juxtaposed abusive language with the mother tongue, with the language of their parents and grandparents. How would think about the identity of the children that we are distorting. The urban, state and private schools do not see any need of teaching Saraiki in their students, to their students. I said that do you encourage them to read anything? Do you have any books in your library on Saraiki language? Have they read any Saraiki text? And the answer was, our students already know Saraiki, and if they are encouraged to learn it in school, they will not learn any other. So again, this is a misconception. The research proves that children up to the age of 12 can learn for 6 languages, experiments have been carried out. Even children have the capacity of more. So a child can learn as many as 6 languages is proven by research with the ease of a native speaker. But they feel that the children have to be monolingual. And again, in the interviews, the teacher said, parents, my question was that since you discourage the use of Saraiki, so are there still any children who speak some Saraiki words in the school? And the answer was, parents are becoming well aware. They don't teach them Saraiki. They know it can become very difficult, a problem for our school system. how can our Pakistani language, how can a language of a region become a problem for the school system? Is the responsibility, the teacher said, I'm not Saraiki, so I feel stressed out. It's the responsibility of the school to, to give that, to hire teachers who are proficient in this language as well. Instead of discouraging the students, the teachers must be supportive towards this. And the teacher said sometimes after 2 or 3 months, I know from their files that they are Saraiki. I ask them they are Saraiki, but they don't speak Saraiki. It's very good. Again, every single word was so shocking for me. Their parents say we don't let them speak Saraiki and we keep them away from servants' children. So this is the shame that's been inculcated in the minds of the students. Now, if I compare it with the colonial discourses that were written, the text or articles or speeches that we find of the colonists. Pennycook cited Fraser here. He wrote, I shall merely observe that the greatest difficulty this government suffers in its endeavors to govern well springs from the immorality and ignorance of the mass of the people. If you compare it with what the teachers are saying today, that educated, uneducated ones speak their mother tongue with their children, and the teacher with exasperation said, again and again we tell them not to speak Saraiki to their children. I'm not Saraiki and can't understand it, so I feel stressed if a child uses a Saraiki word. Now, in 1840, Captain Candy wrote, in a word, knowledge must be drawn from the English language. So for them, English is the only source of knowledge. And when I asked the school head that why don't they have any Saraiki books in their library, and the school head said, why? I don't think there's any reason to do that, learning to read in Saraiki. If it's their mother tongue and they can speak, it's more than enough. So dismissing the language, the literature completely with one sentence. Again, if we look at the other colonial discourses, in Bureau of Education report in 1920, it said, it stands preeminent even among the languages of the West. They were talking about English language. Whoever knows that language has already access to all the vast intellectual wealth which all the wisest nations of the earth have created and hoarded in the course of 90 generations. So they were eulogizing English language, that all the knowledge is there in English. And then Macaulay in 1835 said, a single shelf of a good European library was worth the whole native literature of India and Arabia. Again, such biasness and all, and unfortunately our teachers are carrying on with this biasness, because when I asked that should they be taught to read in Saraiki, and the head said, where do they get that thing? Where are they supposed to read it, by the way? Is there anything which is, any book in this language? So a school head who should know about all this. Sir, yesterday you were saying that when I asked the students the name of a Saraiki poet and they couldn't name him, it's because of this, it's because of us, the teachers, who are responsible for this, for this barren culture that we are creating. And then I said, well, there's literature, there are writers, poets who are writing in this language. And the answer of the school head was, is there any special thing they cannot find in any other language like English? So again, the same discourse that we saw, a single shelf of a good European library was worth all the literature of Arabia and India. Just as the imperial stereotyping of the 19th century is consistently interested in maintaining a belief in the cultural status of the subcontinent, these school authorities construct a picture of Pakistani language and culture as that of acute sterility, thus creating a cultural cringe as well as linguistic cringe in the hearts and minds of Pakistanis. Now, the basis of imperial authority was the mental attitude of the colonists. His acceptance of subordination made empire durable. And Tagore said, it was not the Western culture that was to blame, but the judicious niggardliness of the nation that has taken upon himself the white man's burden of criticizing the East, just as the British thought that we, the Indians, people of subcontinent, excuse me, those who are online, could you please put your laptops on mute? So basically, it's not just the colonizers, it's we who have to stand up. The pursuit of cultural capital symbolized by competence in the English language forces the parents to accept the viewpoint of the school authorities, because the parents feel that the linguistic capital will acquire a value of its own and will become a source of power and prestige in its own right. Unfortunately, the teachers are going towards subtractive bilingualism. We should go towards additive bilingualism, learning as many languages as possible from an early age. Philipson said that the rejection of the experience of other languages, meaning the exclusion of child's most intense existential experience, because the language that the child hears when the child is born, even before the child is born, and we are dismissing that language. Direct influence of linguist educational policies cause cultural dislocation among children. The dismissal of languages other than English or Urdu in our schools will deprive our children of their unique identity and their cultural heritage. This irrevocable loss will result in the cultural dislocation of our coming generations. Now, each language work believes that each language reflects a unique worldview, a culture complex. Each language is a means of expression of the intangible cultural heritage of people, an irreplaceable unit in our knowledge and understanding of human thought and worldview. Now, the previous belief was maintaining two extra languages seems too cumbersome a task. This is what Paulston said in 1994. But we have to see whether this bilingualism, by bilingualism I don't mean just two languages, more than two languages as well. Skutnap Kanga said that this ideology is the ideology of monolingual reductionism, stupidity. Basically, she said this is a stupid thought, this is a naive thought. Multilingualism, very briefly I'll talk about the benefits of multilingualism. It enhances creativity, and high-level multilinguals as a group do better than corresponding monolinguals on tests. Again, this has been proven on tests measuring several aspects of intelligence, creativity, divergent thinking, cognitive flexibility. Because if a child knows that this is a table, it's called maze as well, it's called this, so it makes them more flexible. Bi and multilinguals, by virtue of having greater volume of memory, because they have so many languages in their mind, which is the result of mastering two or more than two different language systems with different grammars, vocabularies, idiomatic expressions, and sound structures, tend to have quicker thinking capacity, because when they are thinking, they are drawing from different ideologies that each language has. And they are more alert and they have more flexible minds. And Worm believes that multilingualism from very early childhood onwards to be maintained past the age of 6 years is the most advantageous quality a person can possess. And if we look at the intellectual and emotional advantages of bi- and multilingualism and biculturalism, because language and culture are closely associated. Bi- and multilinguals have access to a far great volume of information and knowledge than monolinguals. They possess a larger stock of knowledge in their minds, grasp different semantic associations better. When I ask my students that define a mom, where does a mom go and define Maji? They said mom goes to the parlor and Maji wears a white long malmal dupatta and she prays. So what they are saying is they have different worldviews of mothers. Mothers are of this type. So they have more, and they have more flexible minds by virtue of being used to switching languages and thought patterns. The multilinguals are less rigid in their attitudes and have a tendency to be more tolerant than monolinguals. They are less hostile and less suspicious. They are more likely to regard manifestations of other cultures by individuals as acceptable and respectable, because it teaches them respect to other cultures when they know about it, when they think in that. It's been proved through research that high-level bi- or multilinguals as a group compared to the group of monolinguals are statistically more likely to perform better on tests measuring several aspects of general intelligence, cognitive flexibility, divergent thinking, various aspects of creativity, sensitivity and capacity to interpret feedback and non-verbal cues and meanings, metalinguistic and possibly metacultural awareness, and efficiency in learning further languages. Now, if we give up our language, what's going to happen? Skutnab Kanga's, she has cited a beautiful poem. A child who is going to grow up without his or her mother tongue. Little child, what sort of future have you? Living in the clothes given from foreign lands, dependent on food from a stranger's hand. KFC, McDonald's, Jevo, jo desi khane hai, all these. I mean, when you give up a language, you give up a culture, you give up a lot of things. And will all your life be spent in a food queue? The languages which you speak and learn are those of another people's country. You will never know your family. English में तो uncle aunt है, मामू, चचा, फूफो, खाला, ये सारे तो हैं ही नहीं English में. Why is your culture like so much wood burned? The sins of those long dead and gone. Why must you suffer because of them who didn't teach you your mother tongue? O colonial men who exploited them, you helped them because you also gave up your language, so you helped them as the dead are by Sharon. The rebels say, rise up and take back your pride. How can you, when the disease is inside, जब हम साथ शामिल हो गए with the colonists and we are actively giving up our language? Stephen Crane wrote, and I really like this, what he wrote. Think as I think, said a man, or you are abominably wicked, you are a toad. And after I thought of it, I said, I will then be a toad. Let's all be toads and respect our Pakistani languages and teach them to the future generation. Thank you very much.